What if someone pulled off the most daring heist in American aviation history, vanished into thin air, and was never caught? Not because the FBI failed, but because the truth itself refuses to be found. On November 24th, 1971, a man calling himself Dan Cooper boarded a Northwest Orient flight in Portland, Oregon. He was calm. He was polite. He was completely unremarkable. And by the time that plane landed, he had collected $200,000 in cash, strapped on a parachute, and leapt into the dark, stormy Pacific Northwest sky, never to be seen again. Welcome to the only unsolved case of air piracy in American history. Welcome to Echoes of Empire. I'm your host, and tonight we fall into the legend of D.B. Cooper. It was the day before Thanksgiving, and the mood at Portland International Airport was the usual holiday rush, families, businessmen, the hum of ordinary life. Nobody paid much attention to the middle-aged man in a dark suit who took seat 18C. He ordered a bourbon and soda, handed a note to flight attendant Florence Schaffner, and when she slipped it into her pocket without reading it, assuming it was another lonely traveler's phone number, he leaned in and said, "Quietly, miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." Inside the envelope was a chilling claim. He had a device in his briefcase. He wanted $200,000 in negotiable currency. He wanted 4 parachutes, 2 primary, 2 reserve. And he wanted a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't sweating. He was controlled, measured, and utterly terrifying in his composure. The FBI scrambled. Airlines and authorities complied. When the plane landed in Seattle, the passengers were released in exchange for the ransom and the parachutes. Cooper had done the math. For parachutes meant he might take a hostage with him, so the FBI gave him functional ones rather than risk sabotage. This detail alone tells you something about the man. He thought 3 steps ahead. With the plane refueled and a skeleton crew of pilots and a single flight attendant remaining, Cooper gave his next set of instructions. They would fly to Mexico City, but at a low altitude, no higher than 10,000 feet, with the landing gear deployed and the flaps set at 15 degrees. The pilots told him this configuration would burn fuel too fast to reach Mexico. He agreed to a stop in Reno. Somewhere over the wilderness between Seattle and Reno, over the dense forests of southwestern Washington, the aft stairs of the Boeing 727 lowered, a unique feature of that aircraft model. And Dan Cooper jumped into the black, rain-soaked night, carrying the money in a knapsack, wearing no special gear, in temperatures near freezing, into one of the most unforgiving landscapes in the continental United States. The FBI launched one of the largest manhunts in its history. They called it NORJAK, Northwest Hijacking. Over the next decade, they interviewed thousands of suspects, followed thousands of leads, and came up with nothing. The ransom bills were marked. The FBI had photographed every single serial number. Authorities expected the bills to surface in banks, in casinos, in transactions. For years, almost none appeared. Then, in 1980, a young boy named Brian Ingram was digging along the banks of the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington, when he unearthed 3 packets of decaying $20 bills. The serial numbers matched, the money was real, but rather than solving the case, this discovery deepened the mystery. How did the money get there? Was it washed down from the jump zone? Did it fall from the sky and land in the river? Did someone plant it? The bills were bundled in a way that suggested they had been there for years, but the rubber bands had disintegrated in a pattern that puzzled forensic analysts. No other money was ever found. Investigators combed the probable jump zone, a remote stretch of wilderness near the small town of Ariel, Washington. Nothing. No parachute. No bones. No clothing. No further trace. The leading theory for decades was that Cooper simply did not survive the jump. The conditions were brutal. He was in dress shoes and a business suit. The terrain below was dense old-growth forest and river valleys. Experts in parachuting said the jump, under those conditions, was close to suicidal. And yet, no body was ever found either. And in cases like this, absence of a body is not confirmation of death. It is a door left open. Over the years, dozens of individuals have been named as possible suspects by investigators, journalists, and amateur sleuths. One of the most compelling was a man named Richard McCoy Jr., who hijacked a United Airlines flight just 5 months after Cooper's jump in an almost identical fashion. Same method, same parachute escape, same ransom demand. He was caught, convicted, escaped from prison, and was killed in a shootout with the FBI in 1974. Some investigators were convinced McCoy was Cooper using a slightly different disguise. The FBI officially ruled him out, saying his appearance didn't match witness descriptions. But the resemblance in method was striking enough that it never quite left the conversation. Another suspect that gained serious attention in recent years was a man named L.D. Cooper, no relation to the alias, whose own niece came forward to claim he had confessed to the hijacking on his deathbed. She passed lie detector tests. She provided what she said were items of physical evidence. The FBI investigated and eventually could not conclusively connect him to the case. A suspect named Robert Rackstraw was investigated by a private team using cryptographic analysis of letters purportedly sent by Cooper to newspapers after the hijacking. They claimed the letters contained coded messages that pointed to Rackstraw. The FBI reviewed their findings and again found no prosecutable evidence. The case remained officially open until July 2016, when the FBI announced it was suspending active investigation to redirect resources elsewhere. After 45 years, with no conclusive answer, the Bureau stepped back, though it stated the case would never formally be closed. What D.B. Cooper did was audacious in a way that caught the cultural imagination and never let it go. He became a folk hero to some, a Zorro of the skies, a man who stuck it to the system and vanished like smoke. In the town of Ariel, Washington, locals held an annual D.B. Cooper celebration for years, a festival that mixed curiosity with something almost like pride. Songs were written about him, films were made, books filled shelves, and all of it rested on a foundation of absolutely nothing. No confirmed identity, no confirmed fate, no confirmed anything beyond the moment he stepped off that plane and into the storm. The truth is that D.B. Cooper may have died cold and broken in the forest below, his bones long scattered by animals and time, or he walked away, changed his name, and lived out his days in quiet anonymity, watching the news coverage with a private smile. Or perhaps the money found along the Columbia River tells a more tragic story, that he survived the jump only to drown in the river, taking his secret with him to the silt. We simply do not know. And that is the point. In a world where surveillance is everywhere and privacy is nearly impossible, D.B. Cooper did something that seems almost mythological now. He disappeared completely. He became a ghost before he even hit the ground. That's the story of D.B. Cooper, the man who walked onto a plane, rewrote the rules of air travel forever, and then dissolved into legend. The FAA changed regulations specifically because of him, requiring that 727s be retrofitted so the aft stairs could no longer be lowered in flight. The so-called Cooper vane, a small mechanical fix, was installed on every Boeing 727 in service. The entire security infrastructure of commercial aviation was reshaped in part by one man with a briefcase, a note, and a plan no one has ever fully explained. That if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of history's most haunting unsolved mysteries, hit that subscribe button and join the echoes of Empire family. Every week, we pull back the curtain on the stories that history remembers in whispers. Leave a comment below. Do you think Cooper survived? Drop your theory. I read every single one. Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, and remember, the most powerful mysteries are the ones that refuse to be solved.